What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I have another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I have one that I was kind of dreading. You know, sometimes when you first see a trailer and you're looking forward to a movie, and you're like, I wanted to see that, but then the trailer kind of made me feel, I'm not sure about it. And then you don't see it the first weekend, so you get a bunch of reviews and you hear things and you try and avoid spoilers, and all the things you hear are bad, and you don't want it to tarnish the legacy of the thing you liked and you wanted to see in the first place. That, for me, is The Strangers, Chapter 1. Here we go. I'm reviewing today 2024's Strangers re-envisioning. They said it is not a reboot, nor a prequel, nor a sequel, but it's kind of all of those things. It is obviously another movie in the world of The Strangers. The first one and the second one were Brian Bertano movies based on the true story. The first one was the really tense home invasion thriller. The second one was more of a standard slasher fare. And now we are back with a Renny Harlin trilogy. They are doing 3 chapters of this reimagining of this universe, adding 3 new movies to the original 2. Before I get into my overall thoughts on this movie, let's go to the credits, and then this is going to be, I think, a briefer review than my normal ones are, for reasons you'll understand as we go along. The Strangers Chapter 1 was written by Alan R. Cohen and Alan Friedland, based on a story by Brian Bertano, the writer and director of the original 2 movies. Directed by Renny Harlin, who has such horror credits as Deep Blue Sea, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, what else? Exorcist: The Beginning. So not horror movies that I really enjoy very often. He often does sequels further along in a franchise that are not very good, in my opinion. So that could have been some writing on the wall for me. This movie, and again, spoiler-free. I'm going to stay as spoiler-free as possible. Although some things I say will kind of give away what the movie is, I will not be giving away plot points or anything integral to the viewing of the movie itself. But you'll see what I mean when we go into this. This movie is starring Madeline Petch as Maya and Froy Gutierrez as Ryan. And basically it is a couple celebrating a dating anniversary who get pulled off the side of the road with a car situation. So while the car is getting fixed, they are forced to stay at an Airbnb. And of course, when you stay in an Airbnb in a remote location of a small town, you might encounter the strangers. So there we go. That is your story. I'll start with the positives, because there are few. And I like to always lead with the things that are good about the movie. Number 1, I will say that if you don't take into account that this is part of the Strangers universe, or if you've never seen The Strangers and you for some reason want to go see this, it's a perfectly fine horror movie. If you're not looking for anything added to the lore, if you just want another Strangers movie with nothing in particular that's different about it, if you just like a standard turn your brain off slasher and you don't really need a ton of backstory to fill in your time, or you don't need the story to advance in a way that enhances the characters for you, this is a fine horror movie. If you like The Strangers and you just want the same type of pacing and the same type of tone and style without any extra added substance or reason for existing, you may like this movie. I'm somebody who loves the original Strangers, and I find it to be one of the most tense modern horror films, I would say 2000s and beyond, one of the most tense horror films as a homeowner that I've ever seen, and at least in modern times. And this movie does hit that tension again. So positives, I will say the tension of the original film, this definitely matches that tone. If you like the tone of The Strangers, and you like the whole kind of somewhat of a slow burn, but also a lot of jump scares, you like the cat and mouse thing, you kind of like the run and chase kind of a slasher film that has a lot of jump scares, you'll like this. The tension from the first movie is back. The jump scares from the first movie are back. Some of the ones are the exact same, actually. And again, if you like to kind of watch this in a theater and have loud noises and just be scared and just watch creepy masked killers stalking people, you're going to like this. If that's all you're looking for, you'll be satisfied that there are more strangers involved in this. There's another Strangers movie in this franchise. Also, the acting I had no problem with. Richard Brake's in this movie. He's kind of a B-movie horror icon. He has a cool character. The two main characters are pretty good. I think the acting is good. I think Froy and Madeline do a nice job here as the couple. I think they have solid chemistry. I think they act fine. I think the strangers are fine. They're behind masks again, of course. You know who they are. They're fine. And I think the dialogue overall is not bad. There was no dialogue that I felt like was stretching. I thought that the timing and chemistry of the two main characters was good. The couple dialogue back and forth was silly at times. You know, nothing over the top, nothing that stands out. But I think overall, acting and dialogue were fine. But that's all as far as the positives. For me, this is the quintessential why the hell did they make this movie kind of movie, right? This almost feels like, to me, the most pointless movie to be made since Psycho 1998. Like, to me, this felt like there was no reason to make this. And I understand they're rebuilding the franchise. They're trying to reimagine and kind of start over. So this was their chapter one. This is their laying out who the characters are. But we already know who the characters are. They gave us the same, if not less, than they gave us in the original movie, which was really, really good. So again, if you can ignore the original Strangers and pretend it doesn't exist, and you go to see this like a brand new franchise, this might be a start that you like. But if you've seen The Strangers, which likely is why you're here and why you're going to see this, what I thought was going to be a prequel, it is completely pointless. It is a beat for beat and sometimes shot for shot remake of the original movie. It says that it's not a prequel and it says that it's not a remake. If this was just another sequel, I would look at it as kind of like, okay, it's Friday the 13th in the 80s, right? Every year they'd make a new sequel and there wouldn't be a whole lot of lore added. A lot of the sequels would just blend together and be average sequels. You just turn your brain off, get some popcorn, get some drinks with your friends, and watch Jason go through the woods and kill people, right? And the background characters didn't really matter. Jason was just there to kill them. And that is kind of what this movie does if you look at it as kind of a straight sequel to the franchise. But as something that wants to reimagine the franchise, if it was meant to be a reimagining or a reboot or a prequel, it gave us nothing new. Again, some of the jump scares are the exact same. The masks and characters are the exact same. Some of the exact moments, I won't give away things, but there are some moments in the movie that are shot for shot the same thing we've already seen. Why did they make this movie? I am of the belief that if you're going to make a reimagining or a sequel, you want to add enough or change enough to the movie that makes it worth seeing for fans of the original. Fans of the original going to see this, it's like, well, we've already seen the original, and there's nothing new to add to this, so what the hell is the point? I don't understand why this exists, aside from just making the same movie over and over again. Again, I like both of the previous two films in the franchise because the first one is a very basic but very tense, well done, slow burn but nice paced story that is a standard slasher that has roots in Brian Bertano, the original director's real life. It happened when he was a child. So he's telling an original story from his perspective that yes can be slow and yes doesn't answer a ton of questions, but you like it, it's fun, you're genuinely scared, it feels realistic, and you want more to it. So then finally, after years and years and years, Strangers Prey at Night came out. And while it didn't fully satisfy me as a sequel, because some of that original tension was gone and there still weren't a lot of questions answered, they did do enough with changing the tone to make it more of an original slasher, making it more bright, more neon, accentuating the kills, having a few more characters. The main characters still had some good background with their families and their individuality, so it still gave you some meat on the bone, even though, again, it did change a bit of the original tone and it didn't fully answer who the strangers were. It still gave you enough fun and enough of a change to be a worthy sequel, in my opinion. Some people hate Prey at Night. I think it's pretty good, not as good as the original. But I love 1 and I like 2. And I said to myself, I don't necessarily like the way 2 ended because I want more of the strangers. So when I heard this was coming out, I assumed this was going to be a 3, 4, and 5 somehow, or even if they wanted to go back and do a prequel 1, 2, and 3, they were going to give you lore, they were going to add to the characters, tell you why they exist, give you reasons for why they kill who they kill, talk about some of the background characters more, widen the universe a little bit, and not only make their own fresh movies that give you more meat on the bone, but give you the reasons for why 1 and 2 exist and make 1 and 2 better than by proxy and kind of in retrospect. This movie did none of those things. It just made a beat for beat and sometimes shot for shot remake of the first movie, just not quite as good. So again, if you just want the same thing as the first one, you can watch this without watching the first one, or you can watch this and say, okay, same thing as the first one, that's cool, but there's nothing else to bite into. If you want more lore, if you want more character, if you want to add on to the original story, this is going to leave you wildly underwhelmed. And ask yourself, what was the point of making this? You just wasted your time and all of our time. So I know that 2 and 3 are set to be made because they shot 1, 2, and 3 all together at the same time. So 2 and 3 are already in the can. I think 2 is set to come out this fall, later in this same year, which automatically rushing it, shooting it that fast and putting it out within 6 months of each other just tells you kind of what quality it could be. But because they've now laid the groundwork and they're going to have 2 more movies now that hopefully, now that we know who the characters are and they've reset the stage from the first one, maybe now with the next 2 movies, they'll be forced to keep the tone of the original, which the second movie didn't do. They'll be forced in chapter 2 and chapter 3 to kind of keep the tone of the original and keep these characters, and now they're forced to build on them. Because if I watch another movie like the one I just watched, there's no point to make it. So I'm going to be harsh on this. Again, if you're watching this as a standalone, or if you're watching this because you want the same thing that you saw in the first one because you love the first Strangers, you'll like this. For any other fan that wants any kind of intricacy, any kind of nuance, any kind of layer, any kind of world expansion, any kind of character building, any kind of rationale or reasoning for fucking anything, this movie is as pointless as you will ever see in theaters in your damn life. So I'm going to be a little hard on this. And I'm going to say this movie is a 3.5 out of 10. It's not a poorly made film. It's shot well, it's acted well, it's cast well, and everything is tense. When they use the blood, it's cool. It's a good horror movie by itself, so I'm not going to shit entirely on it. But again, as a fan of the first 2 that wanted more, I now want less. And I now come into this not wanting to see 2 and 3. I want them to now put this franchise to bed. And before, I was very excited for a 3-movie trilogy. So they have kind of ruined this for me in a way. I may go back and just watch number 2 again because we've already just seen number 1 again. So let's go back and watch Prey at Night maybe and hope for better days. So I'd be a little disappointed if I was Brian Bertino, whatever his name is. 3.5 out of 10 for me just because as a movie it's not made poorly. It's just made like the one we've already seen before. So I hate the lack of originality. I hate the lack of creativity. If you're going to do this, do something original. Tell me in the comments down below what you think of this. Am I being too hard on this movie? Do you love the first 2 as much as me? Do you hate the second one like most people do? And what did you think of this? Did the lack of originality kill it for you, or did you still enjoy it enough to be excited for 2 and 3? Tell me in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.